And good afternoon, or good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world today. Welcome and thank you for joining us at Charity Navigator, where we're pleased to host today a webinar on building a giving strategy for the holidays. My name is Stacy Steele, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications at Charity Navigator. I'm pleased to have two of my colleagues as presenters today, Laura Andes, our Chief Program Officer, and Kevin Scally, our Chief Relationship Officer. We have carefully organized today's presentation for you to follow, and we hope that it will be informative. A quick couple of housekeeping items to cover. First, this presentation will be recorded, and even if you cannot stay for the entire recording or broadcast, a copy will be sent to you within 24 hours after the broadcast. So if you have to slide off, have no fear, we'll have a copy for you in 24 hours. A PDF of the presentation is also available for you. You will see it in the handout section. And if you're on a laptop or computer, you should see it perhaps on your right-hand side of your screen. Second, we will have time for a short Q&A today, about 10 or 15 minutes. We would strongly encourage you. We love to have participation. So if you have any questions at all at the conclusion of the broadcast or during the broadcast, which we will attempt to answer at the end of the broadcast, put it in the questions area. Again, that's on the right-hand side of your screen. And with all that, let's get started. Kevin, take it away.
Yeah, happy to. Thanks so much for the introduction, Stacy. For all of you that are tuning in, you're in the right place. It's a really important time of year where most of the donations are being made. And certainly you want to make sure that your giving is as strategic as possible. So over the next half hour, Laura and I will be walking through some different tips that you can put into place right away and make the most of your giving. So I'm Kevin Scally. I'm the Chief Relationship Officer at Charity Navigator. Been with the organization for about 4 years. And I lead the team that crafts the brand and who we are and what we say, and also in charge of fundraising as well. So like the nonprofits we rate, we're a charity as well. And so helping make all of the great things that we're doing possible, including the great work that Laura's doing on ratings. So Laura, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Laura Andes, and I'm the Chief Program Officer. That basically means I'm in charge of coming up with the methodology for the ratings for our charities. And I'm thrilled to be with you all today and give you our tips and tricks for how to maximize your giving this season.
Fantastic. So we'll start with a brief definition here to kind of help ground things. Again, if you're here, that means that you're a big-hearted individual that's supporting the causes that are closest to your heart. And when we use the term philanthropy, most people think of like ultra high net worth individuals that are giving millions or billions of dollars away, and certainly those are philanthropists. But the root of philanthropy actually comes from two Greek words. I'm sure that I'll mispronounce them, but it's philan, meaning to love, and anthropos, as in anthropology, meaning humankind. And so philanthropy literally means love for humanity. And so we're going to be talking a lot about kind of the who, what, when, where, how, and why of giving. So why do people give? And some of that will resonate with you. Some of it might be new to you, and you say, "Oh, I didn't realize that that's actually why I give," but that is a big driver for me. And so just wanted to kind of ground the conversation around this, that, hey, you're a philanthropist, you're making a meaningful difference in the world, and really appreciate you using Charity Navigator to help you do that.
So I'm going to talk to you about how to develop an effective giving strategy this season. I get asked all the time from friends and family, how do they decide who to give to, which charities, etc. So I'm going to walk you through a framework that hopefully you'll find helpful as you think about your end of year giving. We think of the guiding questions for your giving strategy as really like first starting out with why are you giving? Then what is your giving temperament? Which charity do you want to support? And finally, how would you like to give? Each of these answers are deeply personal to you based on your circumstance, what your life experiences have been, what you care about, and who you are. And so we think they're a really great framework for you to check in with yourself as you think about your giving decisions. Let me walk through each of them. So why do you give? Giving is so deeply personal and can be based on so many different factors. And it's a combination, we like to say at Charity Navigator, but a little bit of a heart and a little bit of head. So for many of you, you might have personal things in your life that makes you feel very close to a cause. Perhaps you have someone who in your family who had cancer, and so you feel very compelled to give to cancer related organizations. Maybe you believe in global health, and so that's what drives your decision. And so much of this is about who you are and what you care about. And so I always think that's your first question. Why do you give? What do you really care about? What problems do you want to solve in the world? What issues do you want to address? And sometimes that takes a lot of deep reflection on your life and sort of testing out different causes and see which one really pulls on that emotional heartstring. Because if you feel deeply connected to the cause, you're going to feel better about giving, and it's going to be a much more rewarding experience for you. So think about why you give. The next key question is, what is your giving temperament? In many ways, this is so akin to investing. There are sort of 4 different types of temperaments. First of all, are you a risk taker, or do you really like safe bets? That can be applied to philanthropy as well. The other sort of framework is, do you want to see immediate results? So you want to see you did X and you see Y immediately? Or are you willing to do things that are going to take longer, that are more like systems change and policy? So those are things that, are sort of personal to you. And again, it's not unlike investing. I'm a pretty safe bet investor. My husband's a risk taker. And so we see that play out when we think about investing and also when we think about philanthropy. So let's talk about what risk taking is. Are you willing to invest in startup charities, pilot programs, untested ideas? Those need money too to test them out, but they're higher risk. They might not work, but you might have a big win that transforms the sector. Or is it a safe bet? Is it a proven strategy that's known to work and well tested? And that's the site where they tell you this is an evidence-based program that's had a lot of research behind it and that they know it works. Both of those are very important to solve the greatest challenges we have in the world. The next framework is immediate results. Do you want to see the results of your donation immediately? An example of this might be a backpack drive. My mother loves to donate to backpack drives, and she loves to give the children the backpacks. That really is impactful to her. But other people might want to do something systems change that's longer term. This is a policy and advocacy level. Maybe that's advocating at the state level that every child gets resources for a backpack rather than giving them the backpack themselves. Both of those are valid approaches. They're just different ways to address a problem. And some take longer and some require more patience versus others have more of immediate benefit. Again, the sector needs people investing in both types. So take a moment as I'm talking through and think about, are you a risk taker, or do you like the safe bets? Do you like immediate results, or are you willing to do systems change efforts? And I think having those answers will help you figure out which charities are right for you and which causes. The next question, which of course is very near and dear to Charity Navigator's heart, which is, which charity should you give to? We at Charity Navigator have a framework where we say a charity should be trustworthy, financially healthy, organizationally healthy, and sustainable. And of course, making the biggest impact. We'll walk through a little bit later about how we will help you choose a charity, but this is the framework that we use. And then finally is, how would you like to give? There are so many different ways to give. We often say you can give your time, you can give your talent, or your treasure. So let's talk through that. Time is, of course, volunteering. There are so many organizations that would just love to have steady volunteers. And being a steady, reliable, helpful volunteer is worth its weight in gold to them. And so if that's something you have free time, I would really recommend you think about how your time factors into your giving strategy. The next is your talent. This is sort of a cousin to time. in which this might be something you're really good at. You have a skill set that's rare and you're willing to donate that as an in-kind resource to a charity. This could be as a free consultant. This could be as a board member, or in some other way. So what talents do you bring to the table that could be really helpful to the charities that you care about? And last is, of course, treasure. And that is, of course, a monetary donation. And there are many different ways to do that. Note, let me put my caveat, we're not tax experts, so talk to your accountant about which way is the best for you. But of course, you might set up a DAF. That's an investment tool that allows for charitable giving through a brokerage account. The next is, your retirement fund. You can donate stocks or bonds. You can donate crypto even. There are so many different ways to donate resources. So it's worth exploring what type of, how does your charity accept resources? What would be useful and what's best for you for your personal financial situation?
Yeah, and Laura, just to expand on that too, is that, there's some different strategies that you can employ specifically for how you're making those gifts. So, Laura had mentioned giving securities, right? Stocks. And you think about the tax benefits of that. That's maybe not a way that people typically give. I think that I heard a statistic the other day that it was about 1% of folks are actually donating stocks. But there's actually some real tax benefits to that, where folks can essentially take the value of that stock as to when they originally purchased it, and there's tax benefits that come with donating the appreciated securities. So definitely recommend that you connect with a financial advisor. And then in addition to that, connect with the charities and find out the ways that they need help. Laura also had mentioned volunteering. And you may think of volunteering being very traditional. Like we have a photo here of like a park cleanup. But there's a lot of different ways that organizations might be able to use your help. You might have a very specific expertise in graphic design or building things that you might not think like, oh, that's the kind of the traditional volunteer way to be able to donate, your talent. But if you engage with those charities and say, hey, what is it that you really need? I have some free time that I'd love to be able to advance your cause area. They actually engaging that conversation and eliciting that from them could spark some ideas and ways that you can give back, maybe above and beyond what you would be able to do if you're opening up your wallet, but instead opening up your heart.
Thanks, Kevin. Now we're going to talk about how Charity Navigator specifically can help you give strategically, particularly on that third question of which charity might be right for you. So Kevin, do you want to walk us through our new exciting website and some of the features?
Yeah, happy to do so. I would also encourage, I know that Laura ran through, a number of different questions to ask. I know there's a lot to kind of process there, but would encourage, when you're getting the follow-up here for the recording or the PDF that Stacy had mentioned, is really take a pen to paper and write out the answers to those questions. It'll help, reaffirm your commitment to philanthropy and really rethink maybe some of the charities that you're currently supporting or that you want to be supporting, maybe different cause areas that you want to lean into, and then in the ways that you want to support them too, whether it's a recurring gift or, like I mentioned, a gift of stock or volunteering. There's a lot of ways to involve yourself and your family. But certainly, we just launched our new website with an enhanced search experience, and so there's a lot of new ways that you can find and support the organizations that align with your passions and values. And so really, when we were approaching this process of building a new site, the Charity Navigator has been around for 20 years, and we were on 20 years of technology, and there was a lot of band-aids that were put along the way with different things that were added onto the site. So we really wanted to make sure that we had a very streamlined experience where it just had a couple different simple navigation items, and it would meet you at the level that you're at. So if you're new to donating, we have resources in regards to the who, what, when, where, how, and why of giving. If you're a more advanced donor, there's information in regards to bundling your donation or donating those stocks or ways of volunteering. And so you can really dig in and find the resources that actually fit you where you're at in your current giving journey. Of course, people are coming to Charity Navigator ultimately to find and vet organizations. So we have this prominent search experience. So at the top of the site, we have a bar that you can click into. And what's really beautiful about it is that when you start typing in an organization's name or a cause area's name, it'll pre-populate it, and you can click in directly to go to that organization's profile or start a faceted search experience where you can apply additional filtering. And I'll show that momentarily. The other thing that you're seeing here is that we're well known and respected for our curated lists. So in times of crisis or during different current events, people come to Charity Navigator to find organizations that are responding. So prominently featuring those on the homepage, and you can quickly find them now. And then in addition to that, probably the best kept secret of Charity Navigator, and I have another slide on this a little bit later, but is our giving basket, and that's the way to donate through Charity Navigator. And there's a lot of benefits that come with that that make your giving simpler, easier, and safer. So I alluded to this in the earlier slide about the enhanced search and discovery. And so for hundreds of thousands of organizations now, we have cause data. And so this means that previously we only had about 9,000 organizations with cause information. Now we've drastically increased that. And so if you're looking for an organization that maybe is specifically focused on a cause area that's really important to you, Laura mentioned cancer before, you can type in cancer and you can get a list of all of the organizations that are responding. The nice thing is that you'll also get adjacent causes. So you'll see organizations that are focused on breast cancer or lymphoma that'll be suggested to you as you're typing in that keyword. In addition to that, you have this section on the left-hand side where you can go through a full tree of all of the different nested cause areas, and it gives you the ability to explore them and, again, find different areas that really align with your passions. And then the beauty of that, once you've started that search experience, you can overlay the ratings information. So if you're looking for an education organization that's 4 stars, that's located in New York State, you can simply do that by selecting the values that you're seeing in those different dropdowns. Laura will also talk a little bit about our beacons. So these are, this is an area where we're building out the number of assessments to provide a more comprehensive overview of nonprofit effectiveness. So again, just to use that use case of education organization that's in New York, that's 4-star, but you want to find the organizations that have a strong commitment to constituent feedback practices or diversity, equity, inclusion, or they're highly impactful, you can actually select those and go from a list of potentially hundreds of organizations to maybe a dozen, and then find those hidden gem organizations. Of course, you can also apply to see the size of the organization. So if you're looking to focus on just very large, respected, well-supported organizations, or you're looking for organizations that are more recently established and maybe have lower revenue. And this definitely factors into exactly what Laura said in regards to kind of the safe bet versus being a risk taker. So I mentioned the curated lists. They have slightly different names now for those of you that have been using Charity Navigator for quite some time. We used to market them as hot topics for lists of charities that were responding to current events and crises. These are now where to give now lists. And so again, these are going to be for things that are plucked directly from the media in regards to wildfires or hurricanes or big societal issues that are really under focus. We also have our popular charities. So again, these are the more safe bets. These are the charities that are well known or they're being well supported. It also includes information where you can get insight into if a charity is being searched for on Charity Navigator or supported through the giving basket. And then lastly, we also have these best charities lists. So if you're looking for a specific cause area and you know that you really care about the environment, but you don't know where to start, we have a list of the most impactful organizations within that cause area that have been pulled together. And it's a real finite list of like 10 organizations, and it's a diverse offering where it might be reforestation and clean water. And so you can give confidently to 1, 2, or maybe all of those organizations and say, hey, I've done my money is going the furthest that it possibly could with supporting the environment. And then I mentioned this before as the best kept secret on Charity Navigator. If you go to a Charity Navigator profile page for an organization that you're researching or one that you know and love, you can click the donate button to the organization, and that will then open up a window where you will be able to make a donation through the giving basket. And so this is a really powerful tool that gives you the ability to support multiple charities in one convenient checkout. I'm sure everybody is pretty tired of writing multiple checks or going to multiple different websites and entering your payment information over and over and over again. The beauty is that you can do that all in one checkout through the giving basket, and you can also control how much information you share. So if you don't want to share your information, you don't want to get solicited by the organization again, you can give completely anonymously. If it's an organization that you know and love and you want to hear all of the ways that they're making use of your money, you can share all of your information. You also get a dashboard on Charity Navigator where you can track your donations. So come tax season, when it's like, hey, how much did I donate? You can go to one place and see all of your donations there. And then in addition to that, we have very, very low fees. Everybody hates fees, but we don't take any sort of fee, and our payment processor, Give Lively, doesn't take any fees. Of course, the credit card companies have to get paid, but only a small percentage actually goes towards that, and as much of your money as possible goes to the charities directly. And then in addition to that, you can set up recurring donations. So if you wanted to, donate $5 a month to an organization, you can certainly do that. And a lot of donors find that they're actually able to support the organizations they love more by putting it into kind of bite-sized monthly donations as well. And then I'm going to pass it back to Laura. She's our resident guru of all things rating methodology. So she's going to run through the ratings and what they mean and how you can use them.
Thanks, Kevin. So for those of you who are longtime users of Charity Navigator, you might notice our ratings look a little bit different over the last couple of years. And so I'm going to walk through what some of those changes are and the basic framework of how we rate charities. This isn't super detailed, so I'll probably, if people have a lot of questions, I'll take your questions, try to answer really detailed methodological questions as I can, or we can refer you to other resources that hopefully will answer your questions. So starting this year, every charity now has a 0 to 4-star rating. And so a 4-star, we consider that to be a great charity. A 3-star is a good charity. A 2-star needs improvement. A 1-star is poor. And a 0-star, which there are happily very few of, are very poor. So if that's all you want to know, you have this high-level framework that will tell you exactly what our overall assessment of the charity is. So we consider our rating to basically be a comprehensive view of nonprofit effectiveness. And we have broken that down in 4 different areas or domains or beacons, as we call it. The first and most important is impact and results. So at the end of the day, we want to know, is a nonprofit impactful? To do that, we look at basically its cost effectiveness. What is its dollar per outcome that it produces? This is a newer beacon, so not every charity is going to be rated on impact and results. But where they are, you can feel really good to know that we've done a pretty rigorous evaluation of that charity's impact. And if they are highly impactful by this rating, you can feel pretty confident that they are generally highly impactful. I would recommend just going back to the curated list. You should look at the perfect charities list, perfect scores list, because they will have, all the charities, or many of the charities are 100 out of 100 off all 4 of these beacons, but also impact. The next beacon is accountability and finance. This is very similar to our traditional way that we've rated charities across the many years that Charity Navigator has been in existence. And this looks at, are they financially healthy? Are they accountable, have good governance, and good transparency? So here is where you will find most of the metrics that you're familiar with in terms of their financial metrics, as well as the accountability metrics, talking about their board governance. Do they have an audit? Do they have all of the best practices that we think really show that they are trustworthy as a nonprofit and are in financially good shape? The next beacon is leadership and adaptability. We all know that the leader of an organization makes such a difference, and this is where we try to capture that. So we look at their leadership practices. Are they adaptable? Do they have a strategic plan? Do they have a good mission statement? How do they support their leaders to improve? As well as how have they shown to be flexible and adaptable over the years? So that's the third area that we feel is just so critical for a nonprofit to be effective. And the last is culture and community. This has several different aspects, one of which is their equity practices. Are they prioritizing equity, diversity, and inclusion in their internally and externally? And also constituent feedback, which is basically, are they listening to the people they serve and responding to them? There is tons of evidence to say that the most effective nonprofits are really listening to the communities that they serve and adjusting their programs to adapt. And it's really a great measure of quality. So those are the 4 beacons that together create a 4-star rating. So when you see a nonprofit that has all 4 of these beacons and they're all rated highly, you can feel very confident that this is a highly impactful nonprofit. Now, this is a new system for us. And so not every organization is going to have all 4 beacons. Some will have 2, some will have 3. But you'll almost always have accountability and finance, which is very similar to the old Charity Navigator system. So you can fall back on that if that's what you know. And you can feel confident in your giving if you see, even if they just have 1 beacon, you can still feel confident in their 4-star that you should give to them. So each of those beacons have different metrics and are, come together in different ways, but they all sum up to this 0 to 4-star rating. And you can feel good that you can give with confidence if you see a 3 or a 4-star. About that. We also have an advisory system. And this is a really valuable way to find out if a charity has a report of potential or confirmed misconduct, and if that's being investigated by the media or a governmental organization. Typically, we have about 500 active advisories, and they come in 3 categories: low advisory, moderate advisory, high advisory. Low advisory is sort of like an FYI. There maybe was a media story that said something was happening at the nonprofit. It's not usually confirmed misconduct. It's sort of like, hey, you should just know about this when you make your giving advisory. I would say moderate advisory tends to get a slightly more serious. Maybe there's actual investigation going on, or some low-level confirmed misconduct. And so that's a FYI, but maybe pause and think. And then a high advisory is, this is a fake charity. You should absolutely not give to them. There's major fraud happening. And we typically even take off the donate button off the high advisory so that you couldn't give to them through our site. So when you see an advisory, I would say definitely open it up and read. And for a low advisory, you might think, oh, okay, good to know, but I'm still going to give. Or you might say, that doesn't align with my giving decisions. So we think this is a really great add to our site, just to make sure you know for sure you're not being scammed in any way. So now is the best part, because we get to hear from you and to hear what questions have come through the chat. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Kevin and I are happy to take whatever questions are on your mind. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thanks, Laura. Okay, so we have a few questions that we need to get answered today. We want to give you about 10 or 15 minutes, and for fairness, I'm just going to kind of look through the questions dashboard and fire off these questions. Laura or Kevin, jump in when you can. The first one is, there are several highly rated charities supporting a cause I support. Is it better to give a larger amount to a single charity or spread it out amongst them?
That's a good question. It's one we get a lot. And so, I mean, it is a personal preference, but I'll give you my own personal preference, or you might have your own too. But typically the advice that I give is that really get to know and support a smaller subset of organizations. And the idea is that you can make a larger impact. Let's say you have $100 to give. If you give that $100 to one organization, or you split it across 2 organizations, there's potentially more that they can do and accomplish with that donation versus you supporting 10 different organizations at $10. You think of it from like a processing perspective and them following up with you to let you know the impact of your support. And then it also comes with the added benefit that there's less receipts to go through and keep track of from come tax time. And then in addition to that, really knowing who you supported, why you supported them, and what's shown through in Laura's kind of questions is that commitment to the cause, the organization, and then the follow through on your support as well. Laura, I don't know if you have any other thoughts or ideas on that question.
The only other thing is if there's a cause, you might be, when you choose your 3 charities, think about diversifying their approach. So you might want to think, okay, this one's doing something really innovative. This one is doing a more of a safe bet. This one's an advocacy group. And maybe think about your small group as different approaches to see how all of the different ways that you can solve that problem. But I 100% agree with Kevin. You don't want to have 10 or 20 charities. Find a handful at the most that really align with your values.
Thanks, Kevin and Laura. Laura, I'm going to stick with you and ask this question. If I'm looking at a charity profile and it doesn't have an impact rating, what does that mean? Should I donate to them? Can I donate to them?
I love this question. It honestly means not very much, and I wouldn't read too much into it. We are working really hard as we can to rate as many charities as we can on impact, but typically that just means we haven't gotten to them yet, so it's sort of a no information situation. I would suggest if that's something that's really important to you, go to that charity's website and read their annual report and look at what they're measuring, and if they're saying they're impactful. It's a little bit different than an external group doing it, but that will give you a sense. So the lack of an impact rating should definitely not be considered a ding on the charity.
Yeah, it's kind of an addition. And the other thing, while you're going to the organization, again, if that's information that you want, you could certainly reach out to them if you're not finding the data within their annual report and you're not really feeling kind of that palpable impact. And even if you are, you could also encourage them to get their Charity Navigator rating. Like Laura said, we haven't rated all of the organizations certainly on impact. There's a lot more that we can do, but it does require participation from the organization. They need to supply us with data. And so if you're close to that organization, certainly say, hey, I really value Charity Navigator's rating. I say that you didn't have impact. I would encourage you to fill out the information and supply them with the data that they need.
All right, going down the list, I'm just taking the questions as they come in for fairness. The next question, how do you feel about charities that advertise 2 separate funds, one that may separate donors to give to administration and fundraising, and the other where 100% of your money that you're donating goes directly to the project?
Laura, do you want to take that one first? You want me? That's a tough question, but a good one. How do you feel? I mean, feelings are feelings, but I'll give you kind of a train of thought on that. I certainly see the value in being able to go out and tell people that, hey, 100% of your donation is going to go to the cause because we've underwritten the costs of our fundraising or marketing by other funders. So I think it really comes down to more of a marketing technique than anything. It's great that they have the ability to do that. But I would definitely encourage, still to look at like, okay, what is the actual breakdown from a financial perspective? When Laura talks about financial health, how much is actually going towards programs? How much is actually going towards fundraising? Knowing that somebody is underwriting that. I don't think that it inherently makes an organization bad. I just think that, again, you want to make sure that there's good transparency, that where their funding sources are coming from, if they're able to divulge those. And if it's an organization that aligns with your passions and values and they have a good rating on Charity Navigator, then it's still an organization that you can give confidently with. But I think you just need to kind of understand that it is something that they're using as a fundraising technique.
And I would just say that, while we want money to go as much to the mission, overhead is important. People need HR. A lot of an effective organization really comes down to the systems that they have. Do they have a computer system that allows them to track impact? Well, that's overhead. Do they have an HR program that makes sure that staff are happy and are productive? Well, that's overhead. And while, it's a little bit of a balance, where you don't want overhead to be so much that sort of might raise red flags. Most of the time, organizations do need overhead to actually be effective. We see a lot of organizations come in and they say they have no overhead, and I'm like, but they filed a tax return. Everybody's got some overhead. So I would just see that as the marketing technique and maybe not worry too much about which fund to donate to, because both are actually going to produce results, or both are necessary to produce results.
That was a really good question. We have another question that I think is also very good. What does double or triple the impact really mean? These are often used.
Yeah, no, we know these. Yeah, this question is about what's called a match campaign or a match initiative, and so this is typically almost like the nonprofit equivalent of like a for-profit sale. And so you have organizations that go out to say, hey, if you're making a donation today, you'll be able to double your impact or triple your impact. And what's happening there is they did have a funder or a group of funders. It could be the board of directors. It could be a major donor that's supporting this organization that has said, you can use my funds to get out in front of other people and inspire them to be philanthropic. And so there's a couple different ways that these typically take place. One is where it's a pledge that takes place. Somebody says, hey, I pledge, I'm going to give you up to $75,000 in a specific amount of time. Go out and fundraise, and for every dollar that you raise, it'll unlock $1 of that $75,000. The other might be that it's funds in hand that somebody has already given and said, hey, the intention of this is to go out and run this match initiative where you are drumming up additional support. The third would be that perhaps it's programmatic delivery. So it could be an organization that maybe is getting medical supplies or getting gift in kind. And so again, every dollar that's donated will kind of unlock that from like a corporate perspective as well. So it's definitely a reason to give. And certainly if that aligns with when you like to give, then you should definitely take advantage of that. But it's not necessarily something that you have to wait to give for a match initiative to roll out.
Thanks, Kevin. Here's one for you, Laura. Are there certain criteria that need to be reached in order to be rated by Charity Navigator? For instance, must it be up and running for a certain period of time or any other criteria?
That's a great question. I wish we could rate every charity that exists, and there's about 1.8 million. Unfortunately, some of them are just very small, and it's hard to understand based on what we know about them exactly what's going on. So we've set in a criteria, which is they have to file 3 years of an e-filed 990 full tax return. There's a couple of different types of 990. Some are called the 990 postcard, which is for very, very small organizations. There's a 990 easy, which is sort of similar like 1040 easy, for also for small organizations. So they have to file 3 times a full one, which means they're usually around $200,000-ish. And once they've done that, we feel like we know enough about what's going on in the organization. They're large enough that our metrics apply to them. When they get so much smaller than that, we can't rate them. We also rate only 501c3s. So many organizations are C4s that might look like C4s. They typically are in the policy and advocacy space. or they have a C4 and a C3. We only rate the C3s, and we also only rate organizations that are registered in the United States. Unfortunately, there's a ton of wonderful UK and other, local organizations internationally that, I'd love to be able to rate. We just don't at this time.
I'm going to hold you hostage for a little bit, Laura, with a follow-up question. How are you sourcing all the charities that are part of Charity Navigator? How are you unbiased on the charities you choose to have on your site?
That's a great question. We try to be as unbiased as possible. And so really it comes down to that criteria. Any charity that is a registered charity and is on what's called the business master file of the IRS and is a 501c3 is on our site. From those who have those 3 990s, full 990s, they get rated. Beyond that, there's no other restriction. Anybody, we want to be able to rate every charity. We want you to find the charity that is right for you, even if it's not one I would donate to or Kevin would donate to. If somebody wants to donate to that charity, and we want to help you find that.
That's exactly right. The other thing that I would add to that is we don't charge charities to be rated, and we don't charge donors to access our information. So we issue ratings whether the organization wants to be evaluated or not. So most organizations really love us. There's organizations that maybe they don't love us, but they will love us when they've taken some steps to add some governance practices in. We set these kind of best practices that they can abide by. And in regards to other areas of our site, I don't know if that was wrapped into this question, but for our curated list, we do have a series of expert analysts that review organizations that are looking at all of the different metrics that we apply to these organizations and are really truly finding the best organizations based off of our own methodology and criteria to be able to feature in those lists.
All right, we have time for about a couple more questions, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is, if you've typed in a question here, we will then take these questions, and for those that we were unable to answer, we will then follow up afterwards. So that being said, I have the last two questions. Laura, I'm going to kind of stick with you for a little bit, and then Kevin, I'm going to jump to you very quickly afterwards. Laura, a person asked, how frequently are the ratings and advisories updated? I looked up a nonprofit recently, and I guess they were looking for information that didn't correspond with what they were perhaps seeing when they did a Google search or saw something online about someone getting indicted for fraud.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like they didn't see an advisory when they expected to see an advisory?
Correct.
Okay. Well, let me break those questions into. So first is we try to update our ratings about every 2 to 3 months based on the new data that we have. We are struggling because the IRS, which is our main data source, has been quite delayed. They're suffering from, I think, a pandemic hangover. So they have a backlog. They have to process the 990s first before we can use them, and we're waiting for them to finish that up. So some charities are not having the most updated information, and we're trying to find other avenues so that we can have the most updated information. Once we get that, we are updating every other month. That gives us time to make sure the information is correct and validated. On the advisories, maybe they could send me the charity that they're talking about so we can look into it further. We do try to update those advisories as they have been, as our advisory committee determines that there is an issue. And so without knowing the specifics, I can't really answer, but particularly for advisories, we try to make sure a major issue is on the site in a timely fashion.
And I'll just quickly jump in and say that if you ever come across something where you think it's potentially a red flag that we may have missed, you can send an email to info, so that's info, @charitynavigator.org. So hang on to that email address and use it if you want to reach out to us at any time. Kevin, just jumping to you for the last question. It's kind of like a two-parter and a little unrelated, but the first is, how is Charity Navigator funded? And the second question is regarding the giving basket. How does that work in terms of people getting receipts in order to keep track of their donations, as you've mentioned during the broadcast?
These are my two favorite questions. Thanks for asking. How is Charity Navigator funded? We're funded through the support of folks like you. So about 80% of our funding comes from individuals. These are folks that are, visiting our site and finding value in what we do and who we are, and want to make sure that we continue to be able to do that for years to come. And so people make contributions directly to us. We also have a couple household name foundations that are supporting us in a large way, a couple corporations as well. But yeah, our revenue comes in from donations, and so we're really proud of that. We were originally founded as a private foundation, and about 8-9 years ago, we transitioned over to a public 501c3 as well. So we're rated based off the same criteria as everybody else, and you can check us out. And certainly, as you're using the giving basket, there'll be opportunities to support us along the way. So appreciate anything that can come in through that. And then in regards to the mechanics of the giving basket, the way that it works is, Laura had used the term DAF before, a donor advised fund. And so our donations through the giving basket are processed by Give Lively. They're also a nonprofit, and they have a foundation arm called the Give Lively Foundation. And so when you make a donation, technically it's made to the Give Lively Foundation, and then they do the disbursements directly to the charity. And so that's how it works, where you can donate to 10 different organizations in one checkout. It'll be one single tax receipt that goes to the Give Lively Foundation. And then again, they disperse to the charities, and they share the information that you've shared as part of the experience with those organizations. And so, and I do this whether I worked at Charity Navigator or not. I'm really glad that I found the giving basket. It makes it really easy come April. I just be like, hey, this is how much I donated to the Give Lively Foundation, and it's just one single entry. So it is a really smart, easy way to give.
All right, great. Well, unfortunately, we have come to our stop. Again, thank you so very much for listening in on our broadcast today. Again, as a reminder, it was recorded. You will get a copy of the recording within 24 hours. There is a handout, which is a PDF of the slide deck. And again, if you need to reach out to us, you can reach us at info@charitynavigator.org. Thank you so very much again, and have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening.
Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure. Happy holidays.